Good morning, everybody. Welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Monday, the 6th of October. I'm Derek Clark, and to join me to discuss the big news yesterday and the fact that Rangers are now looking for a new manager / head coach, Chris Jack joins me. First of all, how goes it, Chris?
All good. Something tells me the comments are going to be a slightly happier section to have a look through this morning. The news that we should have been able to bring you weeks and weeks ago, something that should have happened weeks and weeks ago, but we've finally got there.
We actually have, and folk are saying I'm invisible at the moment, which is a bit weird. Don't understand why. We'll bring in Blair as well, who's outside Ibrox for us. How goes it, Blair?
Morning, Derek. Yep, I hope you can hear me all right. It's a bit stormy conditions outside Ibrox today, but I think a lot brighter in the minds of Rangers fans given that news that we heard last night that Russell Martin has departed the club after 123 days.
Yes, absolutely. The shortest term ever for a Rangers coach, manager, whatever you like. And now looking for a new boss. Before we continue, don't want to turn into still game, but can you see me now?
No.
I have no idea what the issue is with regards to myself, folks, but we'll crack on regardless. I can see me on my screen, but obviously it's an issue my end, and my camera is switched on. What I'm going to do is, this is not ideal, but I'll take my camera out of the equation, and let's see if that makes a difference here. Let's see. Apologies, folks. A few technical difficulties. We'll try and sort this out. Dear. This never goes smoothly, so we'll plug it back in. Let's see if that will sort us out.
If anyone ever doubted that this show is live every morning, then this is evidence that we are indeed flying by the seat of our pants sometimes.
There we go. Can you see me now?
No.
Holy moly, this is unbelievable. I've no idea what the issue is. I can see all you boys and I can see myself, but you obviously can't see me. I'll just fire it over to you, Chris, while I'll sort this out. The news, of course, yesterday after another substandard result in performance at Falkirk. Rangers drawing by one apiece over there at the Falkirk Stadium. The news emerged late last night that Rangers have parted ways with Russell Martin. They say that assistant head coach Matt Gill, first team coach Mike Williamson also departing as well. The club have thanked them for their efforts and wished them well for the future. And they did say further updates from the club will follow in due course. But I'll hand it over to you. Unsurprising news. And where do Rangers go from here?
I think we should really hear from you this morning, Derek. It feels like a Derek Clark show here. It's not about myself and Blair, but it had to happen. It should have happened a long time ago. I wrote in my analysis piece on the site last night on that Falkirk game that he was lucky to survive Bruges. He should have gone after Hearts, and I don't really see what Rangers were hoping to achieve by keeping Russell Martin in position after Hearts. There was nothing to suggest it was going to get any better, and all they were doing was risking the Europa League and risking the Premiership. And unsurprisingly, it's cost them in the Europa League. They're now really up against it in terms of that competition. And it's cost them in Premiership terms as well, because they find themselves further behind Hearts, find themselves well as of Celtic, languishing in the bottom half of the table. And Rangers, once again, we are even at an even earlier stage than usual. We're looking at a season being a complete write-off for Rangers. And how do you get yourself in that position? How do you make such a mess of it to be in that position so early? It's quite something, and unsurprisingly, Rangers fans thoroughly unimpressed with how the club got in this position.
Yes, Blair, you're outside Ibrox for us this morning. You've met with fans already. I'm sure they'll be asking questions. Who's going to replace Russell Martin? But your thoughts on what was a disastrous 123-day reign?
Yes, I think just following on from Chris's point there, I think the word was inevitable, really. And I think it was probably inevitable from that night in Bruges. If we're all honest, we knew what was coming after the first leg against Bruges. And then that 6-0 game, I think when it got to that point, you really should have went after that evening. That was the night when it was really, as I said, that was the just of this, and I think that word in this context. But that was really the low point of his tenure so far. And after that, it was just a chain of events, just so many different things that happened that eroded trust between the manager and the fans. If you look back on this tenure and you look back at so many missteps that have happened between when he came into a lot of scepticism given his win record at the teams he'd been at before, given his real lack of winning anything at all, and given the way that he played football sometimes. There we go, Derek, you're back in full vision.
Unbelievable.
Given the way that Russell Martin had played football coming into this club, a lot of people were sceptical. You then go through various different things like the handling of the Kieran Dowell situation way back at the very start of his tenure. Coming out, I remember being in the press room against Motherwell that night when he absolutely lacerated his own players after that 1-1 draw, just weeks into his tenure, saying that they have to drop their egos. You'll move on to the Nico Raskin situation, the whole handling of that affair, and the way that he'd been seen to mislead the fans by saying he was training, and then it turned out he wasn't training. The way he handled the Hamza Egeman affair, saying that he didn't want to come off the bench, that looked like it was a little bit of misdirection, and it's just been one thing after another, really, and it's quite hard to believe that so much of it has happened in just 123 days. How it's been so condensed and so packed in to such a short period of time, and a period of time that I think that a lot of Rangers fans will look back on as nothing less than disastrous.
Yeah, the appointment to begin with was one that was universally met with a negative feeling. The fans couldn't understand why this guy had been chosen to lead Rangers this season. But as many gave him the benefit of the doubt when he got the job, they backed him, but he almost tried to change too much. And then come the end of it, Rangers were a mess every single game. And I mean, it culminated in yesterday, of course, which was unsurprising. I said prior to the game when it was last on Thursday, I think, that I expected a game very similar to Livingston, scrappy as hell. Rangers might just edge it, but the match went just the way I expected it to go. This time there was no late winner, unfortunately, as far as Rangers are concerned. But a change for me has come too late. It should have been made weeks ago. And for me, given the results elsewhere as well, the league title and a title race is over for me, Chris, at this point. The Rangers board, the hierarchy, have dithered for too long, and they've allowed it to manifest itself to this point. And it's now a salvage operation for whoever comes in. I reckon it's going to take a great deal of time for someone to come in and make right the wrongs that Russell Martin have set in motion. I think the squad in the building at this point in time is capable of so much more. I think it's hard. I'm not going to go two-footed on some of the signings, but because I think if someone comes in that has a clue about how to organise a team and get results in Scottish football mainly, then we may just see better of those that have came in the summer. The question is, who comes in to replace him? That is what's on everyone's lips this morning. I think I've said it before. I think Rangers, a philosophy-based coach that they went down, that avenue they've went down doesn't work. Rangers need a sort of statesman in there, someone that's a Steven Gerrard figure, if you like. I'm not saying necessarily him, but someone that's going to go in there and carry himself with the gravitas required at Rangers. Lots to pick through at this point in time. Where do Rangers go from here? Do you think an appointment is going to be a hasty one? We've seen how long it took for Russell Martin to be appointed. It took several weeks and into months before he was put in situ. Does this football department have what it takes to find a suitable candidate, do you reckon? Do Rangers go down the interim route? So many questions that need answered, Chris.
So many questions that we'll try and provide answers to over the course of the day and over the next couple of days. In terms of the timescales, there is no excuse for this not being done fairly soon. This cannot be allowed to drag on for several weeks, heading into months, and be another long, drawn-out process as it was the last time. I get why the club wanted to take their time to try and get it right in the summer. Safe to say they did not get it right. That process resulted in a manager who I think will go down as the worst one in this club's history.
Easily.
So there is a lot of pressure now on Andrew Kavanagh as chairman, as the executive team, as the football department. They have to get this right, but they have to do it soon. How this has unfolded and the way that it's unfolded cannot have come as a surprise. If they had been sitting in Ibrox last week thinking, well, actually, Russell's still going to be the right man for this club, we're still going to be able to turn this in, we can still go and win the league. If that was the mindset and yesterday was just a tipping point and I thought, well, actually, we've got second thoughts now, let's just go and make a change. They've not been watching, they've not been paying attention, and they've certainly not been doing their jobs properly. That the next Rangers manager should have been identified, or candidates to be the next Rangers manager should have been identified several weeks ago. Because as we've just discussed, this has been evident for almost since the start of the season. I think Russell Martin came in, and as Blair touched on, it was not a popular appointment. It was not an appointment that that people believed was going to work out. You're right, you had to give him time to go and try and make it work, to try and show what he can do. But it became so evident from early on that the wrong appointment had been made. After Bruges, after Hearts, those kind of matches that I mentioned earlier on, the process to find his successor should really have stepped up at that stage. And I say there's no justification for this being another drawn out process. Rangers back in action, less than a fortnight at Ibrox against Dundee United. The new manager has to be in long before then. You can't say we'll go and bring an interim one in, or we'll give it to someone from the academy just to get us through Dundee United. I have my doubts whether the Premiership title race is salvageable or not. If it is going to be salvageable, you need 3 points against Dundee United. The new manager has to be in, has to get off to a winning start. And this, whatever this has been over the last 4 months, it has to be condemned and it has to be consigned to the history books. And Rangers need to move on very, very quickly.
11 points behind table-topping Hearts, 9 points behind Celtic. Rangers currently sit in 8th position. It really is incredible stuff. So deplorable, it defies belief. Russell Martin departs with a 29.4% win rate, just 5 wins in 17. How it got to this stage is on the Rangers hierarchy, incidentally. It should never have happened that we got to Falkirk and those teams so far ahead of Rangers. The standards have slipped massively for me. Interestingly, Ali McCoist on his TalkSport show this morning has been speaking about the situation. Says, I think probably the new owners and certainly the old management staff probably underestimated the size of the job and the task. I think that a lot of people just look at Scottish football and think Rangers and Celtic will win their games and that's it, finished, because that is what they do. But as you know, football is a lot more difficult than that and a lot harder than that. I just think that aligned to a really poor business in the transfer market in terms of recruitment. It's easy to blame the manager. That's where the buck stops. That's where the responsibility is, at the manager's door. We all know that is what happens, but the players have got to take some responsibility as well. Some of the defending, sometimes when you get on the pitch, you've got to take responsibility, and Rangers just look like wee boys. Falkirk outran Rangers, they outfought Rangers, and that can happen occasionally, but it's been happening on a regular basis. Not good enough. He says that Rangers are a wounded animal, but look anything but dangerous. Do the players need to take responsibility, Blair, do you reckon? Not just yesterday, but for the situation that we now find ourselves in?
I think the players need to take a massive amount of responsibility, Derek. It is them, after all, that are going out on the park and producing, or indeed not so the case, producing the goods so far this season. He's far from the worst offender, but you look at Nico Raskin, for example, when he came back into the team, he had to hold up his part of the bargain, that his name has been sung from the stands by the Rangers fans. But apart from that Hibs game, he's really flattered to deceive alongside most of the Rangers team so far. You look at some of the defending, especially if we go back to that Sturm Graz game during the week, some of the defending that night was schoolboy stuff. And alright, tactically, I think Russell Martin had got it completely wrong on more than one occasion, but you look at some of the individual decision making from the players and you go, it's just absolutely not good enough. Now, whether that can be remedied by bringing someone in who has a better relationship with the players, gives them perhaps a more simplistic coaching style, because I think we're all in a little bit of agreement that the manager is trying to change too much too soon. I think Russell Martin tried to give these players a very complex and a very convoluted way of playing that, let's be honest, either they didn't understand or they don't have the ability to execute. Whether it was right or wrong, it just wasn't working any which way. So I think the players definitely do have to take their share of responsibility in what is going on so far. And the general feeling around Ibrox that I'm getting is, just because Russell Martin is gone doesn't mean that the anger has subsided from the fans. This doesn't mean that it's a clean slate by any means. There is still a lot of animosity towards these players who the Rangers fans have felt are underperforming way below the level of that is a standard of a Rangers team so far. And there's still a lot of animosity towards the board. The protest will continue, I'm sure, against Patrick Stewart, and the anger that is turned towards Kevin Thelwell, because Patrick Stewart, in his short tenure as Rangers CEO, he's now went through 2 managers. He's coming on to his 3rd. This is a man who was calling out for stability, is now looking for his 3rd manager in less than a year. So I think there's still going to be a lot of Rangers fans who don't have that trust in the board, and quite frankly won't have that trust for them to appoint the right man going forward.
Chris, Rangers haven't had a manager that's seen out a season since Gerrard, which is pretty damning stuff, isn't it? The club have been all over the place since winning that league title. We're going to have another manager now taking the reins and trying to mop up the mess that has been left. It just shows you where the club have been recently. It's I know we've got the takeover in the summer, but it's an almighty mess to clean up, this one, isn't it?
It is, and it's a mess that they put themselves in, though. It's a mess that is completely self-inflicted and of their own doing. The managerial appointment was wrong. The transfer window business still to be decided either way, whether it's been a success or a failure, but also results and performances speak for themselves. And as Blair touched on there, the mood and the standing of certain figures at the club is at rock bottom amongst the support. It's a long way back for some of those figures. I think if you're Andrew Kavanagh, if you're the new board, I think the fans should say, well, it was your first crack at this. You've picked the wrong man. You waited too long to get rid of him, but we're willing to give you another go. The man that Blair touched on there, Patrick Stewart, backed Philippe Clement, backed him again, eventually had to sack him, has repeatedly backed Russell Martin. Was the word out of the club was that they were standing by him, and Russell spoke about support that he's had from a number of figures. Patrick Stewart is the man that is running Rangers on a day-to-day basis. This next appointment, if he gets to make it, is huge for him. You don't get to repeatedly make mistakes and make the same mistakes at this football club. So this next few days and weeks, yes, the next manager is the most important bit, but there's so much at stake for so many other people at this football club right now.
I've got an issue with Patrick Stewart, I've got to say, and he's quite rightly in the firing line from the fans. I don't think he's performed that role well enough at Rangers. Certainly don't trust him to interview a successor to bring someone in. Of course, I think he went in too early on the Union Bears banner for the Old Firm game last season. Of course, the Clement interview, like you say, last season as well, but came out in full support of him before sacking him shortly after. Yeah, he just looks out of his depth for me. And incidentally, once I seen that confrontation with Thelwell and Stewart in the hotel after the game on Thursday night, I just had a sense that a decision would be imminent on the manager, because once the ire starts to be directed at those above the guy taking the heat, then you often find in football clubs that decisions are made, because those guys do not want that. So yeah, it was no surprise to see. In fact, probably surprising to see him. He gets the Falkirk game, but there you go. He is dismissed now, and yeah, I don't have much belief that the football department know and understands Rangers as well as the fan base, as well as we do. I think they've, as Alan McCoist touched on in that TalkSport show, I think they have underestimated the club, and I think it's important that the club look to figures and guys who have been there and done that at Rangers before, in terms of appointing a successor and guys that can build Rangers back up from where they are at this point in time. So it leads us on to, lots of comments coming in about who should replace Russell Martin. I've seen some names suggested already. Chris Boyd yesterday mentioned 3 individuals on Sky. Says Steven Gerrard's a name that's never gone away. Frank Lampard's name was another one that was mentioned. I know he's doing some wonderful things at Coventry City, but is that out of the equation now? The obvious one for me would be Sean Dyche. Kevin Thelwell worked with him in the past, and he seems to have a lot of say in the players that are coming in. So that's what Chris Boyd had to say yesterday. Any of those take your fancy, Blair?
I don't know. I've been a long-term admirer of Kevin Muscat, if I'm honest. He's one that for a few years I've always said that I would like to see him in the Rangers hot seat. I think that the key thing about this next appointment is you need to get someone who is going to have instant buy-in from the fans, because I think you've seen this season that if the fans are not on side with you to begin with, then it makes it such a massive hill to climb before you've even kicked the ball. Because, okay, Russell Martin did say a few things like, I'm pretty sure nobody wanted me here in the first place, and that sort of self-pity, I think it kind of it wrangled with fans in press conferences, and I think there was an element. Of course, there was scepticism, as I touched on earlier, with Russell Martin's. I think it was less than 40% win ratio before he joined Rangers. Any fan would look at that and go, not really sure about this. But that's doing a disservice to the critical thinking of Rangers fans, because if they had seen things, if they had seen positive momentum, if they had seen performances, they would have backed Russell Martin just like anybody else, because the fans don't want the club to fail. The fans want the club to succeed, and they want any manager who walks through those doors behind me to succeed. So it was never a personal thing with Russell Martin. It was always on the park, it's not good enough, so we're not getting behind you. But what I think you need now, especially when morale is so low around the club, you need someone who is absolutely going to get the fans united. Does Steven Gerrard do that? Absolutely. He would come back and people would turn out in their thousands to see Steven Gerrard walking through those doors again. I think having someone with a relationship to the club, and I know Russell Martin did play for Rangers, but someone with a positive relationship with the club, like a Kevin Muscat, when he was here before, he obviously won a treble. Only had a short period of time at Rangers, and it was a while ago, but he definitely understands what it means to be a Rangers manager, and more importantly, he understands what it's like to win trophies here, and that cannot be underestimated, what it takes to win trophies in Scotland. I've seen another couple of names being bandied about this morning. I was speaking to a gentleman just before I came on air. He wanted Mark Van Bommel as the Rangers manager. That's a name that has been thrown around. Someone that is apparently interested in the job, but the next few days and weeks, and I know Chris will be much busier than myself in this regard. All I'm doing is fielding phone calls, chasing up rumours, and we'll be very interested to see where this goes next.
Absolutely. Well, Mark Van Bommel, I did see he came out in the press recently saying he had a conversation in the summer when Rangers were looking for a successor to Philip Clement. I know he was at PSV, wasn't he? Mark Van Bommel. Good player in this day. I wouldn't mind him in the Rangers midfield right now, I've got to say. Kevin Muscat's an interesting one, of course. Missed out to Clement back in the day. He's now in charge of Shanghai Port over in the Chinese Super League. By all accounts, I think he's nearing a title there over in China. Their season coming to an end. So that is an intriguing one. He'd be a good Rangers man, as I'm sure Parag Marathi would say if he was appointed, that's for sure. Any of those names that appeal to you, Chris, at this point in time?
You've missed a trick with the title of this video, Derek. You should have taken a line out of that video at the team hotel the other day there and said, well, who do you want then? You need to go and retitle it. Thankfully, we are now able to have that conversation of who do you want then? And I think there's going to be scores of names doing the rounds over these next few days. It's interesting there when you mentioned Sean Dyche. I was just having a look at the comments coming in, and a lot of people against that. A few people buying into Blair's theory on Kevin Muscat. For me, it's Steven Gerrard. You look at the what Blair outlined there in terms of knowing the club, someone that gets that buy-in, someone that understands what this club is all about. I think Steven Gerrard ticks every single one of those boxes. People will say he left when he shouldn't have done. I think the circumstances that he left in, that was not how he saw his time in Glasgow coming to an end. There's a number of different issues in play at that time. I know since he left Rangers, his managerial career has not gone as planned. People will say, well, he failed in Saudi Arabia. That is a concern, but he was a success at Rangers, certainly in the European sphere. You look at the absolute mess that he inherited back in 2018, to be able to build a squad to really re-establish Rangers on the continent was very, very impressive. Unfortunately, Russell Martin has done his best to destroy that reputation over the last few weeks. So for me, it's Gerrard. Whether that's possible or not, time will tell. But as I said earlier on in the show, I just want it to be done sooner rather than later. There's no need for this to.
Do you think they will, though, Chris? Do you have confidence that the hierarchy can do that? Look how long it took them to appoint Russell Martin in the summer. I mean, big clubs usually have contingency plans if things are going awry, and they sound out potential candidates and they get someone in. Do you think Rangers are on the ball with that?
Made the point talking to someone a couple of weeks ago. You look at how events have unfolded in the Premier League of late. Now, West Ham get rid of Graham Potter, appoint a manager within hours.
Yeah.
Forest get rid of Nuno, appoint a manager within hours. There's no reason for it to drag on. There's no reason for this to go on weeks and months and for it to be a long, elongated process once again. As I mentioned earlier on, this has been coming. This has been wholly predictable. It's been inevitable. This was always going to unfold, whether it happened after Hearts like it should have done, whether it happened after Bruges, whether it happened after losing to Celtic next month. It was always going to happen. Russell Martin was never, ever going to see out the season as Rangers manager. So in that scenario, you have to know what's next. What do you want in terms of style? What do you want in terms of being able to pay? What kind of market are you shopping in? You have to have all these things lined up. If Rangers are waking up this morning thinking, we don't have a head coach anymore, we better get to it, then everyone in there deserves to be emptied as well. Because it was completely and utterly predictable. The fans knew it was going to happen, so those in charge of the club had to know it was going to happen as well.
Yes, let's get to a few of the comments that are coming in, because there are loads. Paul Smith says, I bet Derek wants Dyche in. I don't mind Sean Dyche. I think he done a really remarkably good job at Burnley. Not so much at Everton, but I'm not all aboard at the Dyche train. I think I like him as a man. He speaks well, as we often say about managers. But I'll tell you who I would prefer shortly. But some more comments that are coming in. Uncle Dave says Chris Jack for a new manager. Do you fancy that, Chris?
I don't know if I could take a pay cut, to be honest. You boys pay me very well, and you always work very hard in training for me as well. And the morale at Rangers of you to us is excellent. So it would be a big risk to be making that move.
Yeah, we train like beasts, that's for sure. Bluebells are Blue says, Derek in the dugout, it'll be a laugh. It surely would be a laugh. I wouldn't have Rangers 8th. I would bet everything I own. I would have Rangers higher up than where they are at this point in time. Bob and a few others says, first choice would be McInnes. He'll not leave Hearts, though. Yes, he's done a really good job at Hearts. He's got them motoring and then some. I think Rangers, with hindsight, should have just went and got him in the summer. I think if Rangers were interested in him, then he would have come to Ibrox. I don't think it would have been a popular choice at the time, but I think that's someone like that is what Rangers need, a real understanding of Scottish football, pragmatism, plays football the way it should be played, simple. I think he's a good man manager as well, and it will be interesting to see if he can guide Hearts to a league title as well. I've seen sort of clubs having good starts before. Aberdeen last season, of course. It's whether they can sustain that. I think they've got someone in Tony Bloom that isn't messing about, and he. Well, we've seen him recently when he came up to Edinburgh. He's expecting Hearts to win the title in the next 10 years. I think they've got a great chance of really lasting at the pace. I don't have the same feeling about Rangers, unfortunately. And I think it's all dependent as well who comes in. Now, I'll just give you some of the odds, folks. The betting odds, Stephen Gerrard 5-2 to come in. Sean Dyche 7-2. Danny Rule, who was linked in the summer, ex-Sheffield Wednesday head coach, 11-2. Kevin Muscat 6-1. And McInnes is 8-1 on that one. So, Blair, what's your thoughts on Derek McInnes? Can you understand why fans are sort of clamouring for Rangers to maybe make contact with Hearts and bring him in?
I can absolutely understand why fans are looking at him, because he's doing a wonderful job so far. You look at Hearts so far this season, and they are everything that Rangers aren't really. They're well coached. They work hard. They've got a balance between the tradition of the club and a Scottish core, but they've also scouted really well. They've brought in players from afar. You look at the likes of Claudio Braga, Kirizidis, like players who they've been picking up for buttons, really, who look so suited and so well placed in this league, which is just the complete antithesis of what Rangers have been. We've spent a fortune on players who look as though they're completely mismatched to Scottish football. So I can understand why people are looking at Derek McInnes and saying he would have been an ideal choice. For what it's worth, I don't think you'll be getting Derek McInnes out of Hearts currently. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's really signed up for a project there, and I think he believes that he can achieve some pretty special things with Hearts. And given what you've seen so far this season, you wouldn't back against him, given what it's been. One of the names you mentioned there that slightly concerns me is Danny Role. I know he was a man who was very high up in the list the first time round, who a lot on the board were really liked the look of him. He is one of these guys who he may well play very nice attacking football. He may well play a high press and this sort of rock and roll style football. He was very highly regarded in Germany. But as I touched on a minute ago, he is one of these managers who, rightly or wrongly, the Rangers fans will not buy into straight away just because he's not the name. He is not the name that the Rangers fans want to be in that dugout. And I think that's going to be such a massive part of this. If the new owners didn't understand it the first time round, I think they will absolutely have had to have learned from this situation that they're going to have to get a guy who the Rangers fans are instantly excited by and will come back and bring that good feeling back to the club. Because as we've seen on the park the last few weeks, good feeling in the stand translates to better results on the park. When the stands become as toxic as they have been, it gets to the players. Max Aaron said as much. It gets to the players. So if you bring a guy in that nobody has heard of and nobody is really familiar with his style and he hasn't been around Rangers, I think you're putting yourself once again on the back foot. And I'm not saying that is the right or wrong thing in the grand scheme of football, and it might be too reductive to just say that it has to be a Rangers man, but I think it's imperative that you get a guy that has the buy-in from the support straight away.
Totally agree on that, Blair. Just incidentally, guys, I would like to maybe see take over. McInnes certainly would be up there, but I agree with Blair. I think he's too ingrained now at Hearts with that. But yeah, that's an interesting one. Stephen Robinson is someone I think that could get a tune out of this group of players as well. Doesn't need to be a sexy name for me. I would even like, I'm keen to get your thoughts on this, Chris, a Michael O'Neill, Stephen Davis combination. I think those two would get an immediate upturn in performance levels. I think they would put smiles on faces of the players. I think having someone like Stephen Davis as part of the coaching team is no bad thing either. And I've been a big fan of Michael O'Neill throughout his managerial career. People might point towards Stoke. Stoke have been struggling for quite some time now, so I wouldn't hold that against him. He's currently at Northern Ireland, of course, and highly thought of there. But that is a route I would go down. I don't expect Rangers to go down that route, but your thoughts on that?
I was sure you were going to say Neil Warnock there.
It's you that said it.
I was just waiting for the words Neil and Warnock to come up. In terms of some of your shouts, that's actually not the most left field one. I would be surprised if they go down that road. The Steve Davis line, I can certainly get on board with. I think one of the problems that Rangers have had of late, they don't have enough. It sounds a bit cliche. They don't have enough football men. They don't have enough Rangers men in and around that club. And it does sound a bit, you're banging the red, white, and blue drum. But you need people that understand this football club and this city, and importantly, this league. Anyone that comes in and thinks it's only Rangers, it's only Scottish football, it's only the Premiership, you're destined to fail. We've seen that with numerous players over the last 10 years or so. You need people that get it. You need people that understand it, and that includes players on the park as well. Now, Blair mentioned Max Aarons there, and some of the comments coming from the dressing room about the fans, about the pressure, about the expectation, shows that they didn't really understand what they were signing up for, and that's why when it comes to the manager, you need someone that knows exactly what he's walking into. You can't have someone who walks into that press conference room, is unveiled, has a look around the stadium, and then thinks, so this is Rangers, is it? You need to know what it's all about before you get there, and you have to be able to handle it. And that's why I think big characters like Gerrard, like Muscat, as Blair mentioned earlier on, that's the type of manager that Rangers need. That's the type of figurehead that they need. On Michael O'Neill, done a wonderful job, obviously, with Northern Ireland. The Stoke example, as you mentioned there, that I think that would put a lot of people off. It's another manager whose only kind of domestic experience is the Championship. I think if Rangers were to go back to the Championship for any recruit right now, people might be gathering at the front door again. The Championship is not where Rangers want to be shopping right now. So I would be surprised if they go down that road. But the identikit, the key traits, I think are fairly obvious. Russell Martin didn't tick enough of those boxes. His next man, or the next man, simply has to.
Yeah, I know Stoke behind the scenes aren't when Michael O'Neill was there and other managers after him have went there, they reported issues. So I certainly wouldn't hold that against him. But that is just my opinion on that front. James Strachan gets in touch and very kindly donates to the channel. A big friend of the show from Down Under. He said, Muscat, Gerrard, or what about Graham Souness? Do you think Souness would do it? Souness's managerial days are long behind him, James, but I certainly think it would do no harm to get him involved in the process in selecting a new Rangers boss. Of course, he recommended Frank Lampard at the time before Philip Clement was appointed. Would you be opposed to that? Souness being part of the recruitment sort of interview process? Blair, do you think he should form part of it?
I definitely think there's a case to be made that there should be more Rangers men in and around the club anyway. I think that what a lot of fans are upped by is that so many times you see Rangers players, good Rangers players, turn coaches who Rangers almost pass up the opportunity to bring them in and around the building. I'm always a fan of having an ex-player on the coaching team anyway. to guide a manager, even if he hasn't been at the club before, or if he's maybe not entirely familiar with Scottish football. Having that voice in your ear, just to speak to the players, just to give the new players a little idea of, okay, this is the unique circumstances of what it's like to play Aberdeen at Pittodrie, what it's like to play on the plastic pitches of Livingston and Kilmarnock, what it's going to be like when you play in an Old Firm derby. I always think it's good to just have that familiar voice and that sort of that calming tone to let these players know what it is. I think this next 2 weeks is going to tell us a lot about the owners of Rangers and how they plan to run this club going forward, because so much was made in the summer about the fact that Russell Martin went through 7 interviews, and it was such a stringent process to come out with Russell Martin, who, as we could all see, and I think this is what irks a lot of fans, yourself and I, we did that podcast after the Hearts game, and you opened with the immortal line, "That is it for Russell Martin, it's finished." And he lasted 5 more games, but everybody knew it was done. Everybody knew it was done. Everybody knew that his time was up, and I think that a lot of fans, if we're honest, with myself watching Rangers every week, everybody knew the game was up weeks ago, if not months ago. So if they're going to have to move quickly, and they're going to have to move decisively in this next 2 weeks. I certainly don't think they'll be doing 7 interviews. They might be doing an interview every 48 hours at that rate if they're going to get a manager in before the Dundee United game to get someone with that same process. So it'll be very interesting to see how the board handle this very, very delicate time. As it goes, the wind is just starting to pick up here, gentlemen. So with that, I will bid you farewell as I go and talk to some of the punters out here at Ibrox to get their views on where the club should go next.
Yeah, top man. Cheers, Blair, for your work once again. So there's Blair outside of the stadium. 7 interviews. If you're interviewing a guy 7 times, he is not the right guy. Just baffles me why it took that long to appoint a manager. Ian Edwards with the point says that having Souness be part of the interview process, even on a consultancy basis, isn't as crazy as it sounds. Alan Austin says, bring Phil back. Definitely don't think Rangers would be in this position if Philip Clement had the funds available to him, and B, not having to deal with the off-field issues as he had to deal with last season. I think you would have Rangers higher up at the table. I think any manager with salt in the game, I think would have Rangers higher up and competing. What do you think? Just deviating slightly, just on Russell Martin, Chris, where do you think he goes from here? Because his reputation for me is in tatters. I cover a lot of games down south, and a lot of talks in press rooms down here is they can't believe A, Russell Martin was appointed, and B, how badly it's gone for. They can believe because they just think he's one of these guys that's perhaps talks a good game, but his teams don't deliver. And it will be interesting to see what happens now. I certainly don't think he'll get a job the size of Rangers again. Perhaps a team in League One in England, perhaps with no real lofty ambitions and expectations of going up, might look at him and go, "Yeah, we'll take a chance on him." But where does he go from here, do you reckon?
You mentioned there he talks a good game. I think he talks a good game in his own mind. I don't think he talks a good game to the outside world. Now, Blair mentioned some of his comments there earlier on. I would love to have been in some of those interviews that he held with Rangers over those 7 sit-downs, and just to hear some of the buzzwords, some of the cliches, some of the promises that he couldn't deliver on, to see some of the slideshows, to see some of the graphics and stuff that he must have put forward to convince Rangers that he was the right man. I don't, as you said, he will never ever get a job the size of Rangers again. He shouldn't have got a job the size of Rangers in the first place. I think he'll take a bit of time. If he wants to rebuild as a manager, he has to really look at where this has gone wrong. He has to look at how he has recruited players. He has to look at his approach to games. Has to look at how he approaches press conferences. Has to look at his man management. If he does all of those things, he'll get a job somewhere. It wouldn't be anywhere near the size of job he's had here. Interested to see where he pops up next, and next time that he
podcasts.
You took the word right out of my mouth. I don't think it'll be our podcast. Put it that way. I don't expect him to be rocking up here, unfortunately. But I think when he does speak, there'll be a lot of "it wasn't my fault." I think there'll be a lot of the Rangers fans didn't want me. I wasn't given the time. I wasn't given this difficult circumstances. I think there'll be a lot of Russell Martin excuses, because we've seen that throughout the season. We've seen it's never been his fault. It's always been mentality. It's always been individual mistakes. It's never been tactical. It's never been the way that he was setting the side up. So I think we'll see a lot of that when he finally breaks cover, when he does an interview with a paper down south, or when he does a podcast. I don't think you'll see a hands up. No, I made a complete mess of that. This was my big chance, and I just wasn't good enough. No. So time will tell where he pops up next. But a number of clips are interesting. A number of clips were kind of on Twitter last night. Some of the interviews that you did ahead of his appointment and after he was appointed, or speaking to guys that had worked with him or that had seen him in action down south at Swansea, certainly at Southampton. A lot of what those guys said turned out to be the case.
This is what worries me about this apparent football department, because we could all see it going this way, but they couldn't. They saw something in Russell Martin to give him the keys to the kingdom, if you like. So that's why I have my doubts that they're able to identify a potential successor. So yeah, watch this space with regards to that. And it was crazy sight to see Russell Martin departing the Falkirk Stadium yesterday via police escort. But again, that is because Rangers allowed this situation to manifest itself and reach this point. They should have put him out of his misery well before yesterday. But it's where we are. I very much hope it's a wake-up call for Rangers, the owners, and they start sort of getting this team and getting this club back into shape. Get a manager in that wears a club suit, for example. That's maybe a small thing for some, but even things like that starts to grate on supporters, especially when you're not winning football matches. So someone that embraces the club traditions. I know they said when they appointed Russell Martin, they want to change the culture in the club. Bring back the old culture of winning football matches, please, would be my request, whoever comes in. So, yeah, it's over to Rangers now. And like you said earlier on, Chris, I think time is a real issue. I think it's a good time because it is an international break. Bring someone else in. I would preferably like a permanent appointment at this point as opposed to an interim. Come in, get time on the training pitch, try and implement ideas. I think it's all about simplifying things for the players who, for me, have been fed too much information, and that's resulted in what we've seen on the pitch, which is a mess. Players not knowing where they should be standing, what they should be doing, and that is why Rangers are languishing 8th in the Premiership table and why they have suffered 2 back-to-back defeats in the Europa League. It's not a complicated game, football. It's pretty simple. Bring someone in that's going to make life easy for players. Instructions, easy to understand. And then I'm sure we'll start to see this team win football matches. But we'll leave it there for now. Quick word before I go for our podcast sponsors, Willows Fencing, the great guys at the Glasgow-based fencing company you can trust, proud partners of the Rangers Review. If you need a new fence, folks, then these are the guys to call in with that. Storm Amy battering the country lately, then you may be one of those that are looking for a bit of help in restructuring your garden, perhaps. So give them a call or go over to their website, which is willows-fencing.com. They offer free consultations, no matter how big or small the job is. And you also get 10% off if you use the code Rangers Review. Expecting a busy day or so, Chris, do you reckon?
I would imagine so. And once we're off the show here, I need to go and give Josh a phone catch up. I spoke to Josh a number of times yesterday. I think over the course of a working week, I speak to Josh more than I speak to Mrs. Jack, unfortunately. So now we'll see how the day goes. I know he's got a piece that he's working on, looking at inside the sacking. So I think that'll be out on the site later on. We'll hopefully have a fan column from Stevie on the site at some point as well. I think he's on tomorrow morning on the show, so interesting to hear his take on it all. And it's just the usual round of speaking to as many people as possible to find out where Rangers are, and more importantly, where Rangers are heading. So as always, keep an eye on the site, on the socials, and on the YouTube channel. And if we have any news, we'll try and bring it to you first.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll also record, those of you that are extra members on YouTube, will record our weekly Q&A this afternoon. So we'll plan to start recording around 1 o'clock, usual time. So I'll pop the request out on the community page. Get your questions in, folks. I'm sure there will be many. And we'll chat again this afternoon. If I don't speak to you, enjoy your Monday. Make sure you're subscribed to all the channels, whether it be YouTube, the social media accounts, the website, of course, where we still have the tremendous offer of £1 for 6 months worth of content. And make sure you download the app as well. It's the best place to consume all your Rangers review news. Right, enjoy your Monday, and we'll chat again soon. Bye for now.